Welcome to the Red Pill Podcast, powered by agencyx.net. Explore AI-driven creativity, groundbreaking innovations, and industry insights, all in one game-changing podcast. Enjoy.
Okay, let's dive in. We're exploring something I think a lot of you are probably grappling with right now, especially if you're trying to use generative AI for, serious work.
Yeah.
Creative projects, code, marketing stuff. It's this gap, isn't it, between the glossy promise of AI and the messy reality.
That's exactly right.
Mm.
We're looking at this really interesting piece. It's called Embracing the Glitch. The shifting sands of AI expectations in the set. We can live with that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And it just zeroes in on this tension. The initial hope was AI would be perfectly obedient, like a tool you could completely control.
Right.
Versus the actual daily experience where, well, sometimes it feels like it has a mind of its own. And you're not always sure you're in control either.
Exactly. And the article points out this gap is kind of splitting how we approach AI into these two distinct mindsets. There's the one trying really hard for complete control.
Yeah, the perfectionists.
And then there's the more practical view, the we can live with that approach.
Yeah, pragmatic acceptance.
Yeah.
Really.
So our mission today is to unpack these two ways of thinking, using the article's insights, to figure out what this shift really means for your work, your expectations.
Okay, so let's start with that first one, this idea of complete control.
Mm-hmm.
Because initially, when generative AI really burst onto the scene, the vision was almost like a digital genie.
Totally. Like you just whisper your wish, type in a prompt.
And poof,
Yeah.
exactly what you envisioned.
Yeah.
Perfect output.
Yeah. And the article highlights how that dream was super strong among creative professionals, particularly. Designers, writers, artists, marketers.
Mm-hmm. They saw AI as this kind of ultimate apprentice, someone who would just execute their vision flawlessly every single time.
No fuss, no arguments.
Exactly. But then reality bit back pretty hard.
Yeah.
The article used this great term for the problem, nagging pixels.
Nagging pixels. I like them.
And it's not just like minor typos or colors being a tiny bit off.
Yeah.
These are often fundamental, sometimes really inexplicable flaws that just stop the output being properly professional.
Yeah.
Client ready.
And this is where it gets so relatable if you've actually used these tools. The examples in the article are spot on. Like you generate this amazing image, but hang on. Why does that person have 7 fingers?
Or the hand's just a weird warped blob. We've all seen that.
Oh, yeah. Or you're trying to place a logo and it sort of bleeds into the background texture in a weird way.
Right. Or you get marketing copy, the first paragraph's great, but then suddenly the tone just shifts completely. Becomes totally off-brand.
Or code snippets that look fine on the surface, but then you find some bizarre, nonsensical loop buried inside.
These details, these nagging pixels, they might seem small, but the article really stresses this. For professionals who need that polished final product,
Yeah.
they're absolute deal breakers.
Yeah, you can't send that to a client. A warped hand in the main image. Faulty code, no way.
So what happens when you try to force that perfect output? What does that actually involve?
Well, the article describes it as this really grueling process, almost maddening sometimes.
Yeah.
You're constantly tweaking prompts,
Yeah.
right? Regenerating. Then manually fixing stuff in Photoshop or whatever. Feeding that feedback back in. It's a cycle.
Over and over again.
And it's just incredibly time-consuming. It's mentally draining. And honestly, it often feels less like using a tool and more like wrestling with this powerful but a totally capricious thing.
Which leads perfectly into the article's really, really insightful analogy for this whole experience.
Oh, yeah.
The slot machine reality. Trying to get that truly professional grade output often feels exactly like playing a slot machine. You're just hoping for the jackpot.
Oh, I know that feeling. Okay, let's break down that comparison. So you're inserting coins.
Right. That's all the effort, the time, the mental energy you pour into every single attempt, refining the prompt, setting up the parameters, carefully looking at the results.
Okay, so that's the coin. Then you pull the lever.
That's hitting generate, committing your input, setting it off into the void.
And then you're just waiting for the spin. The AI does its thing. It's totally opaque. You have no idea how it gets there.
None at all. And then comes the reveal, the output. And just like a slot machine, the possibilities are, vast.
Yeah. Sometimes, maybe rarely, you hit the jackpot. Something almost perfect.
More often, it's a mixed bag, right?
Yeah.
Some good bits, some bad bits.
Frequently, it's just nonsense. Or those same nagging pixels just keep popping up again and again no matter what you try.
Exactly. Or sometimes you get something kind of brilliant, but
Yeah.
it's just not what you asked for at all. Unexpectedly creative, maybe, but useless for the task.
And the randomness is the real killer, isn't it? Use the same prompt twice.
Totally different results. You fix the weird hand in one version, hit generate again, and now the face is messed up, or the logo is bleeding again. It feels completely arbitrary.
Yeah, like 1 step forward, 2 steps back sometimes.
And the article makes a crucial point about efficiency here,
Yeah.
especially for that last bit of polish. Getting the first, say, 80% might be pretty quick, but getting that final 10% to actual pixel perfection, that can take more effort than the initial 90% combined.
Wow.
And there's still no guarantee you'll actually hit the exact perfect result you need for that high-stakes project. The machine doesn't promise perfection. It just offers possibilities, sometimes frustratingly random possibilities.
Okay, so if trying to beat the AI into submission for complete control is this exhausting, frankly, kind of demoralizing slot machine game, is there another way?
Well, yes. And this is where the article introduces the other major mindset that's emerging, the pragmatic approach, the we can live with that philosophy.
Right, the acceptance.
Yeah, but it's important to frame it correctly. The article stresses this isn't about just giving up or settling for low quality. It's more of a recalibration, a different way of using the AI.
Okay, so what does that look like? How does that, we can live with that approach work in practice, according to the piece?
Well, for one thing, it means shifting how you view the AI. Less like a slave that has to obey every command perfectly, and more like a collaborator, a really powerful, often surprising partner whose, let's say, mistakes or unexpected outputs aren't just problems. Sometimes they can spark totally new ideas, new directions you wouldn't have found otherwise.
Ah, interesting. So you're kind of embracing the weirdness sometimes?
Maybe not always embracing it, but working with it. And it means you're often not chasing 100% perfection anymore. You're focusing on the, say, 80% solution.
Okay. Like, does the main message get across? Is the overall design direction basically right?
Exactly. If the core thing lands, then maybe you accept those minor glitches. The slightly awkward phrasing here and there, the subtle visual imperfections, they become an acceptable trade-off for the incredible speed and scale the AI offers.
Right, because the AI can generate tons of options really fast.
Precisely. And the article even suggests that sometimes, in specific contexts, think like concept art, brainstorming drafts, mood boards that vary imperfection, those nagging pixels, can actually add character.
How so?
It gives it a sort of raw, generative feel. It signals the machine's involvement in a way that can feel authentic, maybe, to that specific stage of the creative process.
That makes sense for early stages. What really strikes me about this approach reading the article is how you treat the output. It's not the end product.
No, exactly. It's raw material. The AI does the heavy lifting, getting ideas out there, generating variations, bulk creation.
And then the human steps in. Not to fight the AI for pixel perfection, but to curate, to select, refine efficiently, and apply their strategic oversight, using their judgment.
It's a different workflow entirely. Less wrestling, more directing.
So if we zoom out a bit, the article seems to argue that this tension between wanting complete control and adopting we can live with that, that tension is really defining our relationship with Gen AI right now, across lots of different fields.
I think that's spot on. You can see it playing out everywhere.
It makes sense, doesn't it? If your job demands absolutely flawless final deliverables like a major advertising campaign or production-ready software, you're probably stuck playing that slot machine reality game. And yeah, it's wearing people out. You hear the frustration.
But on the other hand, if you're using AI for things like brainstorming, rapid prototyping, maybe generating lots of social media variations quickly, or content where tiny flaws aren't the end of the world,
then you're likely leaning into that efficiency. You're embracing the quirks, focusing on the speed and volume.
you're living with it,
Yeah.
and probably getting a lot more value faster.
So looking ahead, the article suggests finding a balance is going to be key. And it involves things changing on both sides, right? The tech and us.
Definitely. On the tech side, the tools need to get smarter. We need AI that actually understands context better, that offers more consistency, maybe gives us more precise control after generation.
Like better ways to fix just the weird hand without messing up the whole image.
Exactly. Better in-painting, out-painting, things like that. And maybe, crucially, more transparency into why it generated something weird. That would help reduce that opaque, random slot machine feeling.
Yeah, knowing the why would help a lot. And the article also says we need to get smarter too.
Absolutely. Users are figuring out how to write better prompts, that's for sure. But it's also about learning judgment, knowing when good enough is good enough and when you absolutely have to intervene manually.
And developing new workflows, right? Workflows that actually integrate AI smoothly instead of just trying to bolt it onto old processes where it doesn't quite fit.
It's about adapting our methods to the tool's actual capabilities and limitations.
And there's a huge point in the article about context. Contextual acceptance. How many nagging pixels you can tolerate totally depends on what you're using it for.
Completely. A quick internal draft or a social media post, you might see a slightly odd background element and just shrug. We can live with that.
Yeah, move on.
But if that same image is going on a massive billboard for a global brand,
Oh, no way, you're back at the slot machine.
you're hitting generate, you're tweaking, you're regenerating, you're grinding until it's perfect because the stakes are incredibly high. You can't live with that glitch there.
So what's the main takeaway here for you listening to this? What does this all boil down to?
I think the core message from the article and from what we're seeing is that chasing absolute 100% control over generative AI, right now at least, is often a really frustrating game. It consumes time, energy.
Yeah.
It's that slot machine grind. Those nagging pixels aren't just bugs to be ironed out soon. They're kind of inherent to how these systems work currently.
Right, but, and this is the important part, if you recalibrate your expectations, if you lean into that pragmatic, we can live with that mindset.
Seeing AI as a collaborator, maybe? Focusing on the 80% solution, using the output as powerful raw material.
Yeah, if you do that, you unlock its incredible potential for speed, for scale, for ideation. You turn it from a frustrating slot machine into a quirky but genuinely powerful partner.
So the real takeaway for you is probably to think hard about your specific purpose. What's your goal when you use AI or when you're thinking about using it? Are you really needing that perfect controlled final output every time?
Or could you leverage the speed and creativity that comes with accepting a certain level of, let's call it, imperfection or unexpectedness? Which mindset actually serves your goal better?
It's a really important question to ask yourself. And it leads to kind of a final thought, doesn't it? Something the article prompts us to consider.
Go on.
As these tools continue to get better, and as we all get better at using them, how do you think your own personal balance between demanding perfection and pragmatically accepting we can live with that? How do you think that balance will shift for your work, for your creative process in the future?
That's a good question to chew on. Where will your own tolerance level land as things evolve? Something to think about.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Red Pill Podcast. If you enjoyed diving deep into the future of AI and media, make sure to follow and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Stay tuned. Bigger insights, bolder ideas, and game-changing discussions are coming your way. Sponsored by agencyx.net.